uh, you know, so they started a whole new life out there, and they did well, but they struggled pretty hard. I went out there. You forget it was a time when I'd never been on an airplane until I made a record. You know, nobody could afford an airplane ticket, so to get to see them, you know, we about once every year or so, me and a buddy of mine, we'd drive across the country, you know, and go 3 days straight, and you know, you'd save whatever, $100 or a couple $100 and drive straight through. And I went to California, and I tried to, you know, I did some auditioning and things, but I realized really quickly that I wasn't going to be able to live out there. You know, I wasn't going to be able to, you know, there was just a lot of musicians, and while it was a much bigger music scene, you know, I was a nobody, and I realized very quickly that someone may let you play for free, but they're not going to really pay you, you know. Mm-hmm. So I stayed about 2 months, and I realized I was going to end up living off my folks, and I didn't want to do that, and so I went back to New Jersey, you know, but I don't know if that's had something to do with part of what I've written about. Also, there's maybe some of my own experience, and then some of just that's the American story. You know, the American story is transience and the idea of over the rise. You know, which is less now, I suppose, but I think it's some ingrained part of not just the American spirit, but just human spirit in general. My characters have always been on the move, going someplace, you know, searching for something, whether it's a better life or or running from something, or with the idea that somehow moving will make you better, you know. I mean, it'll heal you inside, you know.
This may not be the exact quote, but you said something like this once. When I was 24 years old, I'm sitting at home in New Jersey asking myself the question, is love real? And if people have followed my characters through all the years, they can find a common thread with them, and they see that Lucky Town is where those characters wind up. Now that's what it was at the time you made that statement. Is the Ghost of Tom Joad where those characters wind up, or where their thoughts wind up now, or is it more a nod of recognition at a path that all of us could conceivably take if we make the wrong choices or if our circumstances aren't so lucky?
Well, I guess I don't like to use the idea of wind up, you know. I mean, I guess you don't wind up till
or where we could find ourselves
till it's over. But there's a lot of different things that I sort of questions I kind of tried to work through in my work over the years. I guess the idea of, is love real, and I think it is. But it's hard to find, you know, and it can be hard to find evidence of it. I think that I'd written, all of this record, and I was in my library one night, and I pulled a book out called Journey to Nowhere, which is a book I bought years before and I hadn't read. The text is by a fellow named Dale Maharaj, and there's some really great photos by a fellow named Michael Williamson. And basically what they did is they went out on the road, and they rode the trains from, I think, St. Louis to Oregon, you know, and it documents a lot of what had been happening to a group of Americans in the latter half of the 80s, you know, the people that the trickle-down economy never trickled down to. And it's a book that makes very real and puts, you know, real faces on, hey, what it's like to, if you slip through those cracks, you know. And I was very frightened. I remember I read it. I think I read it all in one night, and I closed it. My God, you know, like, hey, you know, you don't never know what tomorrow brings. It strikes some sort of real. I think the fear of, what if you couldn't take care of your family? What if you had to leave them? You know, what if you couldn't be home with your sons and your daughters? What if you couldn't pay, you know, for their health care, and couldn't provide them with the health care that they need? What if that was your kids? You know, I know how deadly important my job is to me. What if I didn't have that job? You know, or what if I couldn't do that job after I did it for 20 years or 25 years?
Or what if the job you had didn't have anything to do with anything that really meant something to you?
You know, right, you know. So these are all questions that, I don't know, I ask myself a lot, I guess, and hey, I've had an enormous, you know, amount of luck and fortune, and I've worked hard, but the other thing, I don't know, it never feels that far away, and I think that it's as far away as the guy next to you, you know. That's not that far.
If you believe, as you said once, that people listen to your songs not to find out about you, but to find out about themselves, what do you think they'll come away from this record thinking about?
Basically, I think I tried to sit down and feel the record. I think your music always ends up being two things. One, it's probably a photograph of your own inner landscape, emotional landscape to some degree, and possibly your character in some fashion, you know, how you perceive your life, lives around you, the place you live. And then it's a picture, hopefully, I sat down and tried to reflect what the country feels like to me right now. The bottom line, you know, what the bottom line is. Because I think that's the line that people will always judge. I think America will always be judged against that. I think because that's what the American idea was, you know. Some concept of a shared burden. I guess what I was trying to do, probably for myself, is to put myself back in touch with those ideas, those values. I have children now. I'm a grown man. Now's not the time for me to think about what I want to be like. It's the time for me to be what I want to be like, you know. And so I think I was trying to really get myself back in touch with those, with my family, my children, the man you want to be, and what you want the place you live in to be like, you know. So I don't know how other people will. I think I usually sort of go for that first, and then I assume like if it's working for me, then it'll work for for my audience or whoever listens to it, you know. And that's really, I think that's probably where I'm coming from on, you know.
We're with Bruce Springsteen at the Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, New Jersey. The Ghost of Tom Joad is in stores now, and the tour begins this coming Sunday night at the Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles. More with Bruce after this. That was Youngstown from The Ghost of Tom Joad. Want to talk a little bit about the inspiration for that?
That was a song that really, I go back to the book called Journey to Nowhere. I'd written the whole record, and then I read the book, and Youngstown and a song called The New Timer are really drawn from a lot of the information and stories that were in the particular book, you know. I guess that was something that probably, out of all the things on the record, maybe that connects most directly to something if you were a fan of, say, The River or just a story about post-industrial America, you know, what happens when your job disappears and you were able to, you know, to make a good living for 20 years, and all of a sudden that's not there for you. All of a sudden maybe you can find a job that pays half as much, a quarter as much, and you're 45 years old, you're 50 years old, you know. What happens, you know, when the craft you've learned, when the skill you've learned, I think, hey, what if I couldn't, you know, my musical ability, that's all that I have, you know. I'm not a multi-talented person. I have a talent in a specific area, and I fumble around every place else, you know. So it was sort of, I wanted to re-engage some of those ideas and some of those issues, and that's really where that song came out of, you know.